Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ascent 2022 Student Symposium, Stress and Wellness, Finding Your Balance as a Student session. Before we kicking off the session, I would like to announce some housekeeping items. You can use chat to engage with your fellow attendees. If you have any technical issues, you can always contact me through the chat. If you have any questions, you can use Q&A function of the chat of the Zoom of your Zoom panel. If you're not already, please be sure to follow us on the social media handles, as you can see at the bottom of the screen. Without further ado, I'd like to pass it to our moderator, Tina Page. Tina, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Haroon. Hello, everyone out there. My name is Tina Page, and I will be moderating the session today on health and wellness and stress and how we're going to make sure that everybody that walks out of here today has a pretty good idea of how to identify it and know that what it looks like and some things that maybe this panelist group can help you to help get us past that next hump in life. I am a VP HR business partner with the McKesson Corporation. And on the panel today is Nina Walters, who's director for corporate HR with Lindy. Also, John Lee, who works as an associate in the advisory for KPMG, as well as William Chen, senior financial analyst from Wells Fargo. So I'm going to turn it over to each of the panelists to let them introduce themselves, and we'll get started shortly. Nina?
I am Nina Walters. Like Tina said, I am the director of HR for Lindy, and I'm based in Danbury, Connecticut. John?
Hi, everyone. My name is John Lee. I'm a senior associate. Sorry, should have corrected that. Sorry. Senior associate at KPMG in our accounting advisory service practice. Been with the firm for almost a year now. Prior to that, worked as a SEC financial reporting accountant for a little less than 4 years. William?
Hi, everyone. I'm William. I've been with Wells Fargo for a year now. Just recently graduated in 2021 from USC. So fresh grad, and I'm excited to talk to you guys all and bring it back to Tina to continue our panel.
Fantastic. So as you can see, we have a pretty diverse panel here from William, who literally just graduated last year. So maybe the closest to all of you in terms of how he's been feeling. But a few of us who are early career life, no kids yet. John, lucky. I always kind of joke a little bit. Folks that don't have kids don't quite yet know. In fact, we were talking as we were on that platform earlier before we kicked off. And then Nina and I, who I would say are we soon to have grown children off the payroll, which is very exciting. But we've lived a couple. Thank you, John. We've lived a couple of humps here and there. But with that said, let's go into this conversation a little bit deeper. Let's talk about some of those things that could be stressing you out. So if we popped over to the next slide. All right. So how many of you, number one, chew on this number two lead pencil? So I don't know if you guys noticed there, but maybe the first signs of stress is noticing that you are chewing on things that you probably shouldn't be chewing on. That is my mom's side coming out. But as you look at this slide here, right? Straight A's, AP Calc, study, make sure you've got Chem Lab, you've got a Spanish quiz, ACTs, college admissions, all of these things that as a student are probably causing you a lot of stress. And truth be told, I've got two boys who are right in the middle of high school as well. I've got one that's going to be a junior this year and another one that's going to be a sophomore. So, you hear bits and pieces, but quite frankly, they don't really necessarily want to talk to mom about it. So for those of you that are maybe kind of in the same boat, hopefully maybe you'll talk to complete strangers, because sometimes, believe it or not, that's actually easier than talking with people that you know. So these stressors are real, and these stressors are happening to a lot of us. If we haven't gone through it before, you might be going through it now. There's a lot of things that are happening. And so as I was preparing to do the session here, I thought, hey, who else can maybe relate to some of the stressors that are happening? What else can be going? And I started to find myself on Pinterest. That's true. That's where old people go. We don't go to TikTok. We're not Instagramming. We go to Pinterest. But I found some really cool things at Pinterest that I think may speak even more to a little bit of the stressors that we feel, especially in the community that we're in. So if we listen to our next guest speaker, who probably doesn't even realize he's a guest speaker, if we go to that next slide, we can talk to our friend Vincent over here. Vincent's senior quote from his dad: "You're an Asian, not a Bijan." So not sure how many of you out there have heard that. If you have, absolutely put some comments in the chat. And folks, again, I want to highly encourage you. This should be an interactive session, even though we can't see you, but you can see us. Would love to get some feedback from you guys. But our friend Vincent's father, right? As if high school wasn't stressful enough, we add on the added Asian stereotype. Again, you're an Asian, not a Bijan. So the next guest speaker, who doesn't realize they're a guest speaker, is our friend Randy Chung. Randy said high school was easy. It was like riding a bike, except the bike was on fire, the ground was on fire, and everything was on fire because it was hell. So those of you who are in the midst of it, I can tell you I was not a fan of my high school years. I never got asked to the dances. I always was struggling to feel like I fit in socially. So I can absolutely relate a little bit to our friend Randy here. And last but not least, our friend Yunasuke. So he obviously was very involved in high school, ASB in the 12th grade, wrestling for 10th and 11th grade. He was a part of the Japanese club his whole career through high school. And his quote here says, "Just because you're trash doesn't mean you can't do great things. It's called garbage can, not garbage cannot." And so I wanted to make sure I put this out here on this last slide, because at the end of the day, folks, for me, what I've learned about our community and our sisterhood or brotherhood is that our ability and our capability when it comes to resilience and bouncing back and really turning things around, I think this is really one of the bright spots for us as Asian Americans when we think about stress and wellness and well-being. So with that said, this is where we get to the more interactive side of this panel. So what I'd like for you guys to do, I want you to answer this question, and there's going to be a little poll that pops up. We want to know what's stressing you out. So if you want to pop the poll back up, we'll give you guys a couple minutes and take a look and, tell us what are the things that are stressing you out currently. And if there are things here that are not listed, feel free to use the chat function as well. All right. There's only one of you on the call, apparently. If you're out there, vote. I'm seeing some, this is what I call the AAPI stubbornness. If I'm stressed, I'm certainly not going to tell you. Any other votes out there? Haroon, can you see if there's actually participants in our session today?
Yes, I can see there at the moment 2 attendees.
Okay. I guess nobody's stressed out. All right, well, it looks like someone said, hey, it's all of the above. And so let's go ahead and close this poll. And what I would tell you is that in the last couple of years, especially with the pandemic, I would be surprised that it has not been stressful for a lot of folks. So I'm going to turn it over to the panel right now. Instead of going to that next poll, we're going to head over to the panel really quickly. And so although we didn't get a lot of responses, panel, I would love to hear, what was your experience at this juncture in life? When you think about health and wellness and all the things that were stressing you out. And we'll kick off with Nina.
Well, that was a long time ago. I have different stresses now, and I think stress is stress. And I always find that I need to take time to center myself. And I know I'm stressed out when I start to hyperventilate. I breathe, my heart rate starts to go really fast. I start to get very hot. So I usually need to find a way to center myself, whether it be literally cleaning my desk, putting things away so I feel a little bit more in control.
Oh, that's a great call out. There's actually physical things that you're experiencing, it sounds like, when you start knowing that the triggers are starting to come that stress you out.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
William, how about you as a pretty recent college graduate? Let's hear your perspective.
Yeah, so for me, I think managing stress has always been different. I think depends on what is kind of current in my life. But I make sure that I spend ample time with friends and family outside of these tasks that I need to kind of accomplish, and make sure that I have an organized like structure of what I want to complete, just so I can take mental notes and understand the tasks I have ahead of me. Because once you kind of write that down and kind of mark each task off, you see how it's doable, and it's a very kind of easy way to kind of tackle something that may seem bigger than it actually is. And so also balancing that with kind of activities I like to do, including sports or my game nights with friends. And so that's kind of been things I've tackled, especially during COVID. So
Okay. No, that's great, William. I love that you're calling out that it's easily as you compartmentalize or kind of line your ducks up in a row, if you will. These things aren't so big that you can't knock them out one at a time, if you will, if you just kind of take that moment. John, how about you? What would you say, I guess, what are some of the things that stress you out, and what are signs that are telling you that you are starting down that path?
Yeah, sure. So I guess thinking about my past when I was in college, I think, growing up as an immigrant, I've struggled financially while I was in college, making money for tuition, while being a part-time student was always my stress. And, during that time, I think what I've learned is to stay physically active, which enabled me to stay mentally and physically healthy. And this can be done by doing favorite activities, which can be as simple as taking a walk to the park. And what I've really learned is to take my time and just go on my pace. And since everyone's different, oftentimes we forget to give our body and give our body time to recover. And the signs that could be noticeable for me would be muscle aches, headaches, or just my heart pounding. It could be it could show in various ways. And I think it's okay to take a break sometime. It's different for everyone. When your body's stressing, just take a break. I think that's a good way to relax. And lastly, I think it's important to, instead of avoiding stress, like learn to navigate, because you'll have new stresses every day in your life as you live. So yeah, learning to navigate is a really good way to overcome stress, I think.
No, that's great. No, I love that you're sharing, especially calling out. There's pretty easily identifiable physical triggers that will say to you, okay, hey, this is a warning sign, slow down. Systems are getting a little crazy over here. So I think that's such a great call out. So I'm going to ask the panel here. It could be Nina, William, or John. What are some maybe emotional signs that maybe people maybe aren't aware of that you have maybe personally experienced, or things that you can share with the folks on the call here to say, hey, what are some other triggers that may not be physical in nature, but maybe mental or emotional that will help us identify what some of those stressors are? So I'll turn it over to the panel. Anyone who would like to jump in, please do.
So I don't think I told everybody, or I think I told the panel, that my daughter just finished her freshman year of college. And she didn't know some of the triggers, but when I was talking to her, she was very irritable. She was a lot of worrying. Her worrying was off the charts. She was a worrier anyway, but it was off the charts her first year. And she felt, even though she was with a lot of people, she did feel lonely. She needed to find her group. She needed to find her friend group. And going to college, and I'm sure William and John can attest to this, is difficult. You're away from your family, you're away from your support system. You have to navigate a whole new world. So those were some of the emotional and mental things that I saw in her.
Oh, Nina, thank you so much for sharing. I, like your daughter, when you say irritable. So I'll give you an example for those out there. So I have two boys, I told you, mentioned earlier, 15 and 16, but it's the little small things, right? They'll be like, hey, mom, where's my shirt, right? And seems pretty innocent, no big deal. But when I am stressed out, I'm like, where's your shirt? Do I do your laundry? Do you do your own laundry? Where's your stuff? Why isn't it hung up? Why isn't it? And it starts to spin to a cycle of where it was just really simple of like, hey, all they were really probably asking was just help to try to find a shirt. And then it spun into, oh my gosh, you don't clean your room, you don't do this, you don't do that. And so I think one of the things here too that I would call out is if you're having a pretty big reaction to something that could be seen as just, face value, hey, someone's just asking for some help, that might be something that you might want to slow down and say, okay, I need to stop, because they're gonna drive me crazy and I'm gonna drive them crazy. So other thoughts out there? William, John?
Yeah, I think one of the bigger indicators is being anxious as well. Just, in college, you have a lot of things on your plate, and each activity or each item can create some triggers of anxiety. And that's been something that's been pretty apparent when I was in college, in terms of seeing other people anxious for tests or anxious for club activities or interviewing. And so these are all different things that, can really snowball into different effects in their different parts of their life. And so it's important to be aware of this anxiety and know there's different avenues of tackling it as well. And subsiding it for me, it was, again, kind of trying to calm myself down and take time to think about my goals and really structure myself so I'm set up for success. And whether that be organizing my plan or also kind of talking to other people and see how they approach it. I think always getting a new perspective is a good way to kind of ease yourself and also understand, the whole process. And, you're not alone, and that, this is a very common thing to feel. But, as you slowly tackle it, then the less anxious you may get. But again, it's different for everyone. So it is something that's very ubiquitous in college and also like in all parts of our lives.
Thanks, William. That's really some really good sound advice. John, anything to add to that?
No, I think both Nina and William mentioned everything I had in mind. One thing to add is, I guess, a good sign of mental stress would be, signs. It would be the similar signs as depression. I would say avoidance. You want to avoid people. Which it's just, I guess, the natural way of your body reacting, saying, I would have to assume that, what lowers my self-esteem is something that I wanted to avoid. That's kind of like, I think a good sign of mental stress is, you just want to avoid anything that would just lower myself. And, that's what I wanted to add.
No, that's actually such a great call out, John, because I think there are times that, especially if we're asked to be put out of our comfort zone, or we're asked to do something that we don't know necessarily if we're going to be good at, right? Like putting yourself out there is really, really difficult. And then it leads to what William's saying about anxiety. And then when Nina says, hey, even though I'm around her daughter, even though when I'm around other people, it doesn't necessarily feel like that connection is authentic. We did have a question that came in through the chat. So thank you for for those that are out there that may have joined, that are still with us and may have joined a little bit later. But the question is, how can physically dispersed teams manage stress or socialization issues? So I'll turn that over to the panel as well. Any thoughts around how physically dispersed teams can manage stress or socialization issues?
So there's a couple of things. You can get together for a non-work thing, meaning you could have Fridays at 5, you can all bring a glass of wine and have a wine party and talk about your weekend plans. Because I think Zooms and Teams and all that doesn't necessarily have to be for work. You can always use it to, if you're physically dispersed, to use it to connect. Because especially if you're a new team and you need to build relationships, and in order to be successful in whatever roles you have is to work as a team, then find time to just get together to socialize. We in one of our other facilities, we have they do wine and cheese on Friday nights. So everybody gets together at whatever time they get together. They're doing wine and cheese, and they're just chit-chatting, and they're just talking, and they're getting to know each other. Kids pop in the video to say hi. The pets are barking in the background, but you get to know the person outside of work.
Okay. Nina, that sounds great. It sounds like what you're really telling the group here also is that, even though it's Zoom, and even sometimes though it's quote virtual, in terms of physically dispersed teams, right? You still have to engage, and you have to have the screen open. You have to have those conversations. So that's such a great call out. John, William, what would you add?
Yeah, I think it's always important to echo on Nina's comment, is to build relationships outside of work in terms of talking about work. It's always good to see how someone's up for on the weekend, build those personal relationships. So when you guys are engaged in your work, then it's more enjoyable for each individual person. I know that, working with some of my coworkers, we make sure to get lunches together just so we can catch up on, our lives outside of work. And so that type of engagement will make sure, like, if you have any questions during kind of group meetings, that you're more comfortable, and it creates a more comfortable environment where you're able to be a more productive asset to the team.
John, thoughts?
Yeah. So at KPMG, we have a bunch of sports teams that we could attend to. I'm actually in a golf league, which is a good way to, just get out there. And, although we are all from the same company, we are all from different service lines, and, we don't have to talk about work. We could just, mingle, just talk about any random things, that's for us. I mean, for me, at least, that's a good way to really just manage stress in that way. And also it's a hobby that I like. So that's a great opportunity for myself, and it's free. So that's the best part, actually. So yeah.
That's right. Free is always a really nice kicker. So, so for the person that asked that, hopefully that answered your question or gave you some thoughts of how we can manage some dispersed teams in terms of stress and socialization issues. So we're going to pop into our next poll, if we don't mind. So the next question is, when you think about the stress and well-being and health, right? What prevents you from talking about it or getting help? So if we can pop that survey up, that would be great. Oh, I think it's the one before that. Ah, there you go. So poll number 2. Again, the question is, what prevents you from talking about stress or from getting help? So we talked a little bit already about what it feels like, what some of the triggers are, some of the signs that we see, whether it be physical or mental. The second question here again, right? Is there, when we start thinking about stress, what prevents you from getting help? And so one response is, I feel embarrassed. And then second, it's really easier not to talk about it. So I think we can go ahead and close the poll here. And it what I would say here is that, man, it's a kind of a really meaty question. So I'm going to turn it over to the panel here, because, you know, I want to say this, that I acknowledge even answering that question on a poll where nobody can see you is probably sometimes a little bit hard to even admit. But, you know, that's probably one of the two of the biggest reasons, right? One, it's embarrassment, and two, it feels easier not to talk about it. So John, let's start with you, if that's okay. John, what would you say, you know, in terms of the responses that we got? You know, how would you address embarrassment, or it's easier not to talk about?
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually had a conversation with my wife's cousin, and she's a senior. She's turning senior, so she's a junior. And she actually mentioned that I asked her if she wanted to talk about these things, and she said she would rather not. And you know, the reasons are whether it could be embarrassing to share their personal stories, or it could also mean she also mentioned it's some people might not relate her story to theirs and would not understand. And it's okay. I think it's completely okay not to share your personal stories. Sharing your personal stories isn't the only way to manage stress. And I think one of a good way to just overcome these things or learn to manage stress on your own is to really spend time with yourself, get to know yourself better. So you would know what would make yourself I guess feel better, or you would spend time to find your hobbies. It could be either finding hobby, or it could be finding a passion project. That's also another way of releasing stress. So yeah, you don't always have to share your stories. I don't think if you're not comfortable, it's completely okay.
John, what it sounds like you're saying to the team here is that, you know, you have to go at your own pace, right?
Yep,
That
exactly.
You shouldn't feel like people are forcing you to share something that you're not ready to share. And
Yep.
that is okay. Like there's no right or wrong about it, is what I'm
Mhm.
hearing you say.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. William, how about you? What would you say to those that say, hey, well, it's embarrassing, I don't want to talk about it, or you know what, it's easier, just, leave it be? What would you
Yeah,
say to the group here?
I think that a lot of society has created the thing that where being vulnerable is something that may be looked down upon just because you don't want to be the only one who is struggling with a certain topic or a certain situation. And it's funny, since once someone brings it up, everyone kind of goes around. It's kind of a ripple effect of, oh, I can relate to that. And so just being brave to kind of share this stress, or being able to kind of share your experiences, really is relatable to a lot of people. And you know that it's very relatable and understanding, because in life there's a lot of things that can create these types of stresses, and everyone's going through similar kind of experiences. That when they're going through college or high school, there's a lot of similar experiences that can be shared and understood between everyone. And so having empathy and knowing that people are there to support you is always an important reminder, because it's easy to be cynical and know that, oh, maybe I just keep it to myself and kind of suffer by myself. But there's a lot of resources out there and all the support groups that you can approach, that people are willing to support you, and also provide any kind of just any support that they can offer. And so I think it's good to be vulnerable and not always have to fight these battles by yourself.
Okay. William, that's really great. I think what really resonated for me was that when you said, hey, if you take that next step and you be brave enough to share kind of where you're at, it's never a surprise, or maybe it is a surprise, that how many people share that same thought or share that same feeling. And so, the biggest message I think I heard you say was like, you're not alone. you know, it may feel like you're alone, but you're not. And when you start to see that other people may become vulnerable as well, and you guys can get through it together, that's some of the real positive outcomes that could happen out of that. So thank you for sharing. Nina, I would love to ask you a question related to this. You know, we're a little, you and I are a little bit different in terms of where we are in our life, but was there ever a time in your life that you asked for help, and what happened?
Yes, I did actually. So I think we have to admit that culturally, our cultures don't, I mean, the Asian culture is just, you don't share what's going on in your family. You don't share, you know, what's going on, and, you know, you just muddle through and all that kind of stuff. And there was actually, when I first graduated from college, I was having a very difficult time, and I actually went to therapy. So, and I did not tell my parents. So I was working and I went to see a therapist on my own, and it helped me. It really helped me with my focus and realizing that there were a lot of things that were not in my control, and then I can't be a control freak, and I need to let certain things go. So yeah, I did seek out therapy at one point in my life, and my daughter will probably kill me, but she was having a difficult time, and I had her find a therapist on campus, and that has really helped her. I think what our audience needs to understand is that there is such a huge focus right now on mental health, that a lot of it is from COVID, because they have seen the impact of masks and just being isolated have done to young kids. That a lot of schools have increased their mental health facility, you know, therapists, their, you know, people in those types of vocations for their student population. So
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Please. No, please.
I was just going to say, so I understand not wanting to ask for help because you're embarrassed, because I completely understand that you're fighting with thousands of years of culture. But I also think that if you can't do that and you feel embarrassed, you could journal, just write. Sometimes that helps. Just journal, and you don't have to go back and read it now, but 10 years from now or 20 years from now, when you find that journal and you read it, you may say, oh my God, this is what I was completely stressed out about, you know, because right now things may seem really big, but they may not be. And I'm not belittling anybody's stress. I'm simply saying that your stressors change as you get to my age.
No, Nina, thank you so much again for being vulnerable and sharing. I love when you said, if we're fighting 1,000 years of our culture, right? When everybody, oh, the shame, right? The shame that comes with it. And I kind of joke, because, you know, and I think hopefully all of you can relate, right? When we think about what people choose as a profession instead of Asian, especially Asian folks, right? It's lawyer, doctor, accounting, technology, right? And if you did anything else, they're like, wait, what do you do for a living? Right? I'm gonna be close to 50 in a couple of years, and my parents have my mom has no clue. They're like, wait, what do you do again? Like every year it's the conversation. Are you making enough money? Are you doing good? Wait, what do you do? Are you worried about your job? So I think, Nina, that's such a great point when you say, you know what, it is not common here. Nobody wants to talk about therapy. And the reality is that it helps. And the reality is that if you're not feeling good and you get sick, we go to a doctor very quickly, because we say we have to take care of ourselves, right? And so it's just as we start to see the societal changes and the societal norms, right? I think for the group out here is that understanding that, you know what, mental health is a real thing, and you have to address it, and you have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. So Nina, again, thank you so much for sharing. Appreciate that. So we're going to go to the third poll question and the last. So some of you in the audience may have already gone through, you know, some of these tough times. And so I would love to know if, you know, was there anything out there that you did to overcome? Or, you know, maybe it's still something that you're working on. So would love to hear from you guys out there. Okay, perfect. Somebody says, hey, they are seeking professional help. Yes, great. Talking to friends and families, better managing time and responsibilities, pursuing the hobbies. Fantastic. So I know there isn't a huge group out there, and of course we are recording this for posterity. So maybe in a time capsule, or if someone has free time, they said, hey, I would have liked to have caught that session. So hopefully, you know, at some point too, as people are listening to this recording, they're going to get some things out of it. So thank you to the person that's still with us out there. But would love to turn it over to the panel and, you know, ask them, you know, we've already heard a couple of things like pursuing hobbies and getting out there and just being brave. What else would you guys add? What else would you say, you know, are some things that could really help overcome? What are the things that you would say that maybe in your experience that you didn't think would help, but it actually did? So turn it over to the panel for a free for all.
Yeah, I think there's something that John touched on earlier is making sure like your physical health is just as healthy as your mental health. And so making sure you're eating kind of 3 times a day, and you're not kind of avoiding these things that are kind of deteriorating your body, because you know stress, when you go through stress, your body's taking a lot of just it's taking a lot. And so you're kind of just your whole body just needs some nutrients and energy throughout the day. So it's important to kind of be mindful of that. And also, you know, daily exercise, it goes a long way, and it can really clear up your mind. Some things I did during COVID especially was going to the gym or doing home exercises, and when the gym's open, try to go as much as I can, just because there's an outlet for me to kind of take out my stress and just be in an area where I can just focus on me and my body. And there's so many different activities you can do, whether it be and pursuing different hobbies. It's a good way to kind of get out of that kind of perspective of being in a dark hole of being stressed, and you really see the light of just kind of, you know, normal life and things that you can enjoy.
Well, that's great. Yeah, you know, we do forget about it, right? It's easier to go grab a Snickers bar than it is to grab a cup of fruit, right? I know I always kind of joke, I was the worst eater ever as a young person. And so, you know, I know everybody lectures you, the way that you eat now is the way that you're going to eat in the future, and they are not lying. So this morning, even having breakfast, it's, you know, making sure, hey, instead of just grabbing a croissant laden with butter and buttery, flaky richness, right? Maybe it is that cup of fruit today. So it's a great call out. Thanks, William. John, Nina, anything to add?
Yeah, so there's this really interesting video on TED. Is it TED Talks? It's by a health psychologist. Her name's Kelly McGonigal, I believe, and it's basically about how to make stress your friend. So there's different things that kicks in when you're stressed out, which one of them, you know, causes heart disease, obviously. And if you learn to think differently, stress could actually not help you become healthier, but there's different fundamentals that helps you. So it's all about the way you think about stress. So it's going back to initially what I was saying was, instead of avoiding stress, you gotta learn to navigate. And I think it kind of relates in that sense. So learning to make stress your friend, and it's really, I mean, I would recommend you to check it out. Learning to make stress your friend is a good way to navigate stress.
Fantastic. No, thank you, John. Make sure everybody Google that. I'm sure she will turn up. I think I'll do that later on in the week as well. Appreciate that. I did have another question come in through the chat. Nina, this one's for you since you're an HR person. What resources companies and schools might have for students and employees if they want to reach out?
So I know companies have employee EAPs where you can call and you'll get scheduled for like maybe a couple of free sessions for to talk to somebody. Schools have literally offices now, like for student mental health. So it's probably the student health office, and they will likely have an offshoot for mental health. The challenge is that there are so many students asking for help that it's a long wait. Like there's literally a long wait. So I know you're not comfortable talking to your parents, but you may be able to piggyback on your parents' medical to go through their health plan to talk to somebody. I think it's important for all young people, all people, to know when they're completely under stress, because you don't have to live like that. John wants us to take stress and spin it positively and use those to in a positive way. William talked about, extra nutrition and everything like that. There is a book out there also called Get Out of My Head, which talks about how do you reframe everything that keeps going, the worries and everything like that in your head. So I would recommend that if you want to read that. I don't know who the author is, but I know I got it mailed to me for free. So I don't know, I have no idea how, but I landed on some mailing list and I have that book for free. So
That's fantastic. No, I will say, if there are resources out there, Nina's absolutely right. I was pulling out my phone. I don't know if you guys can see, but there's actually a little health. It's blurry like that, but there's a little health app. So she was saying, hey, if you guys can get on your parents' insurance, there's actually live health that you don't have to go somewhere. They can actually do it virtually. So that's an option. And I think, Nina, what you said about reframing, that is such a key, right? Like, how do you look at it differently? How do you look at it at a different perspective? And I think that's something, again, love the idea of getting a TED Talk, get that in. Those are easy and usually pretty fun to watch. Pick up that book, right? Take a read through. There's always things out there that can help you. Like William said, hey, get out there, get some of that physical, get the body moving, get used to it. So some really great ideas in terms of how you can tackle stress and well-being. And then, with the 1 minute that I have left, I'm going to go ahead and close us and just say, again, you're not alone. There are plenty of us out there that need the companionship, and know that we are all going through the same thing, and know that it is a really difficult time. And so, have a little bit of the courage and reach out. But at the end of the day, we are one group, and, forums like this really help to connect us as well. We are all people, and we got to lock arms together and walk in lockstep, and know that, it's life, and sometimes it gets hard, but that, with a little bit of help and a little bit of insight and a little bit of looking at it differently, we can overcome. So I belong, you all belong. Really excited again for the Ascend convention that is coming up in a few weeks. And hope you guys are doing great out there. Thank you to our panelists, Nina, John, and William, for the time today. And we hope to see you in the very near future. So take care, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.